unaware his pregnant wife owned the company hosting their family gala. Daniel Thompson refused her a seat at the table. Clara Hayes stood in that ballroom, for months pregnant, and watched her husband personally order her chair removed, so his mistress could sit beside him instead. Daniel laughed with his mother Ruth and his mistress Marissa at the main table of the family gala, completely unaware his pregnant wife owned the company hosting everything they were celebrating. The venue, the staff, the catering. Every single detail of their family gala belonged to the pregnant wife Daniel had just humiliated, in front of 200 guests. But his pregnant wife didn't say a word, not when her husband refused her a seat at the table, not when his mother called her worthless, not when his mistress kissed him in front of everyone at the family gala his pregnant wife's company was hosting. She stayed silent and waited. And when Clara finally stepped onto that stage and took the microphone at their family gala, what she announced about the company, about who really owned it, about where her husband's money actually came from, and about what his mother and his mistress had really been doing, it didn't just shock the room. It ruined all three of them. But here's what nobody understands. Why would a pregnant wife who owned the company hosting their family gala let her husband refuse her a seat at the table without saying anything? What did she know about his mother and his mistress that made her wait for that exact moment? And what did she announce on stage about the company that made her husband collapse, his mother lose everything, and his mistress flee the city? That morning, Clara woke up at 6:47. The alarm screamed from across her home office, vibrating against a wooden desk stacked with contracts and awards. She opened her eyes fast, like someone waking from a decision instead of a dream. Her hand moved immediately to her stomach, a protective gesture she'd developed over for months of carrying a secret nobody knew about. The baby, her baby, their baby. Except Daniel didn't know yet. She planned to tell him tonight, after the gala, when they got home and the pressure was off, and maybe, just maybe, he'd remember why he married her in the first place. Clara sat up slowly, her gaze drawn to the wall across from her bed. Shelves lined with framed awards glowed in the soft morning light. Dozens of them. Leadership plaques, innovation recognitions, business growth honors. Every single one carried the same name. Clara Hayes, her maiden name. The name she built her empire on while her husband thought she stayed home doing nothing. In the real world, at work, in every contract and corporate document, she was Clara Hayes, founder and CEO of Hayes Consulting Group. But at home, on invitations, in Daniel's family, she was Mrs. Clara Thompson, quiet, invisible, forgettable. Daniel knew she used her maiden name at work, but he never cared enough to ask why. He assumed it was just branding, some professional thing that didn't matter. He never looked closer, never wondered, never connected the dots between the Hayes on her office wall and the Hayes on the contracts, funding his entire life. Clara stood and walked to the awards, brushing her fingers over one frame, then another. This wasn't just an office. It was a private museum, a shrine to her father's legacy. James Hayes had started a small consulting company from nothing when Clara was just a child. She remembered sitting by his feet on the floor while he studied business reports. Late into the night, his reading glasses slipping down his nose, his pen scratching notes in the margins. He used to tell her, if you work with honesty and heart, success will come. But don't chase applause, Clara. Chase excellence. When she was 25, cancer took him. The memory still hit her like cold water. Her father calling her to his bedside, his voice faint but steady, his hand squeezing hers with what little strength he had left. Clara, he whispered, protect the company, grow it, but grow yourself too. Don't let anyone dim your worth. She promised him she would, and she did. Clara inherited Hayes Consulting Group when it was small enough to run from a modest office, with 6 employees and 1 conference room. But with her sharp mind, her father's teachings, and a relentless work ethic, she expanded it into a quiet powerhouse. She took contracts nobody else wanted. She solved problems other firms called impossible. She built relationships based on trust, not flash. And within 9 years, Hayes Consulting Group became one of the region's largest private consulting and event management firms. She kept her success private. She never chased the spotlight. She loved working silently, letting her results speak for themselves. And to keep peace at home, she made one firm rule with her core team. Her husband and his family must never be treated like they were dependent on her. No special favors. No whispers of "this is the owner's husband." She didn't want Daniel to feel small until the day she realized he already did. That he'd been making himself feel big by making her feel invisible. Clara moved to her desk and opened her laptop. Her calendar was packed, but one event stood out. Thompson Family Foundation 25th Anniversary Gala. Daniel's big night. The night he'd been rehearsing speeches for, stressing over, obsessing about for weeks. The night where he'd finally stand in front of everyone and prove he was somebody important. What Daniel didn't know was that the company hosting the event, Hayes Events Management, was one of Clara's subsidiaries. She'd acquired it 4 years ago during a strategic expansion. She never used her face in the marketing. The brand was known. The owner was not. Public documents listed Hayes Consulting Group as the parent company, but Daniel never looked. He never connected the Hayes on the contract to the Hayes on his wife's office wall. He was too busy being the star. Clara stared at the Gala program on her screen, her finger tracing the small logo at the bottom. Hayes Events Management, her company, her father's legacy, hosting the event that would celebrate a man who couldn't even look at her anymore. Her phone buzzed on the desk. Unknown number. The message made her blood turn cold. "Are you ready for tonight?" Clara frowned, staring at the screen. Only a handful of people had her current number. Her staff, a few close friends, Daniel, some vendors he insisted she share it with for emergencies. She didn't recognize this one. She tried calling back. Number disconnected. Her heart started beating faster. She checked the message again, rereading it, searching for clues. Nothing. Just those 5 words. "Are you ready for tonight?" Something about it felt wrong. Not threatening exactly, but aware. Like whoever sent it knew something she didn't. Clara set the phone down and took a breath, her hand moving back to her stomach. For months pregnant. 16 weeks, a boy. She'd found out 3 days ago during her ultrasound. The technician smiled and said, "Do you want to know?" And Clara, lying there alone, because Daniel was too busy to come, said yes. "It's a boy," the technician said, "healthy and strong." Clara cried right there on the table, happy tears and sad tears mixed together, because she was bringing a son into the world, and his father didn't even know he existed yet. She pulled out the ultrasound photo from her desk drawer, the black and white image of a tiny curled form, and stared at it. Tonight, she thought, after the gala, I'll tell him. I'll show him this and maybe he'll remember that we're supposed to be a family. Her phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. This time the message was different. He doesn't deserve you. Or that baby you're carrying. Clara's hand flew to her stomach, protective, terrified. How do they know? Clara's car pulled up to the Thompson family home at exactly 9:30. The house loomed in front of her, massive and cold. All sharp angles and perfectly trimmed hedges that looked more like a warning than a welcome. Before she could even turn off the engine, the front door flew open. Ruth Thompson stood on the doorstep, arms crossed tight over her chest, her face twisted into that familiar expression of permanent disapproval. Clara had learned to recognize over 7 years of marriage. Ruth was 61, sharp-eyed, sharper-tongued, the kind of woman who wore her cruelty like expensive jewelry and expected everyone to admire it. She didn't wait for Clara to step out. She didn't say good morning. She just snapped, "About time. The gala isn't going to organize itself, Clara." No warmth, no acknowledgement, just immediate attack. Clara took a slow breath, steadying herself, and stepped out of the car. She'd chosen her outfit carefully this morning. A flowing navy top that concealed the small bump at her belly, loose enough to hide but elegant enough not to draw questions. The effort it took to keep her voice gentle, to swallow the hurt and respond with kindness, was visible only in the slight tightness of her jaw. "Good morning, Ruth," she said softly. "I'm here to help with whatever you need." Ruth's eyes traveled over Clara like she was inspecting something defective. "What I need," Ruth said, voice dripping with disdain, "is a daughter-in-law who doesn't make my son look like he married down." The words hit Clara like a physical blow, sharp and deliberate, designed to wound. She felt them land in her chest. felt the familiar ache of being measured and found worthless by a woman who had no idea. Clara had been funding her entire lifestyle for years. Clara forced herself to stay neutral, to keep her face calm, to not let Ruth see how much it hurt. She'd gotten good at that over the years, hiding the pain, pretending the cruelty didn't cut as deep as it did. But today, with the baby growing inside her and those strange messages on her phone and the knowledge that tonight everything would change, the words cut deeper than usual. She followed Ruth inside, her hand unconsciously moving to her stomach again. That protective gesture that was becoming instinct. The house buzzed with activity. Florists arranged centerpieces on every available surface. Caterers moved through the kitchen in synchronized chaos. Ruth's friends, wealthy women in expensive casual wear who spent their days judging others and calling it charity work, clustered in the living room, their voices carrying through the open doorway. Daniel stood at the dining table, 36 years old, handsome in that practiced way that comes from knowing exactly how to angle yourself for photographs, dressed in casual clothes, but already radiating the energy of someone preparing for performance. He was checking a list, muttering under his breath, his finger moving down the paper with obsessive precision. Clara watched him from the doorway, searching his face for any trace of the man she'd married, the man who used to hold her hand during thunderstorms because he knew she was afraid, the man who used to call her his lucky star and mean it, the man who promised her quiet strength was what he loved most about her. That man was gone, if he ever really existed. Daniel looked up briefly when Clara entered, his eyes passing over her like she was part of the furniture. "You're late," he said flatly, not even bothering with a greeting. Clara's throat tightened. "I'm actually 10 minutes early." "Don't argue," Daniel cut her off, his voice sharp with irritation. "Just make yourself useful." No kiss, no hello, not even eye contact, just dismissal. Clara stood there for a moment, absorbing the rejection, feeling it settle into her bones alongside all the other rejections she'd collected over the years. How many times had he looked at her like this? How many times had he made her feel like an inconvenience in her own marriage? Ruth's voice cut through from the next room, loud and imperious. "Clara, these decorations won't arrange themselves honestly. Must I do everything?" Clara moved toward the living room, passing close to the cluster of Ruth's friends. They didn't lower their voices. They never did. One of them, a woman in a cream cashmere sweater with perfectly coiffed silver hair, stage whispered to the others, "She's so plain, isn't she?" I don't know what Daniel was thinking. Another woman, younger, with too much perfume and a smile like a knife, added, "I heard she doesn't even work, just stays home all day." Ruth's voice joined in, not bothering to whisper at all, pleased to have an audience. "She should be grateful my son tolerates her, honestly. I don't know why he hasn't traded up." The women laughed, a cruel performative sound designed to be overheard, designed to humiliate. Clara's hand tightened around the glass vase she was holding, her knuckles going white. But she didn't turn around. She didn't defend herself. She just kept moving, kept breathing, kept her hand on her stomach where her baby was growing, and told herself silently, "For you, little one. I'm staying calm for you. But tonight things change." Daniel was 15 feet away. He heard every word. Clara knew he heard because she saw his shoulders shift slightly, saw him glance toward his mother and her friends, saw the moment of choice flash across his face. He could defend her. He could say something. He could stand up for his wife. He said nothing. He turned back to his list and pretended he hadn't heard. That silence hurt more than Ruth's words. Clara arranged the decorations with mechanical precision, her mind somewhere else entirely, replaying the morning's messages, calculating the evening ahead, feeling the weight of 7 years of silence pressing down on her shoulders. When she finished, she excused herself quietly, saying she needed to check on Daniel's formal wear upstairs, and no one even acknowledged her leaving. She climbed the stairs slowly, each step heavy with exhaustion that wasn't physical but emotional, the kind of tired that comes from years of being invisible in your own life. She opened the bedroom door and stopped. Daniel stood in front of the full-length mirror, his tie in his hands, his face flushed, breathing too fast. "Good evening, honored guests," he muttered to his reflection. "It is my privilege, no wait. Good evening, As president of the Thompson Foundation, damn it. His hands shook as he tried to knot the tie for what must have been the fourth or fifth time. This wasn't confidence. This wasn't excitement. This was fear. Raw, desperate fear. "Daniel," Clara said softly from the doorway. "Are you all right?" He jumped, startled, then covered it with immediate annoyance. "I'm fine," he snapped, "just preparing." "You seem nervous." Clara stepped closer. "Is something wrong?" "I said I'm fine." Daniel's voice rose, sharp and defensive. Clara's eyes drifted to his dresser, noticing the drawer slightly open. She moved casually toward it, pretending to check his cufflinks, keeping her movements natural and unhurried. Inside the drawer, she saw them. To Gala invitations. The first one read Daniel Thompson. Standard. Expected. But the second one made her heart stop. Daniel Thompson plus guest. Not plus Clara Thompson. Not plus wife. Just guest. A nameless, faceless guest he was bringing to his family event. Clara's breath caught in her throat, but she didn't let it show on her face. She carefully, slowly, slid the drawer closed, her hands steady even though her chest felt like it was caving in. Behind her, Daniel's phone, lying on the nightstand, lit up with a soft vibration. Clara saw the preview message before Daniel could grab it. A red heart emoji followed by the letter, and the message preview read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. I'll be wearing that red dress you love." Their eyes met in the mirror. For one frozen, terrible moment, Clara and Daniel stared at each other's reflections, the truth hanging between them like broken glass. Then Daniel snatched the phone so fast his cufflink scraped against the wood, leaving a mark. He flipped it face down and stepped away. His jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping. "Don't start," he said, voice low and threatening. "I didn't say anything," Clara replied, her voice quieter than she'd ever heard it. "You don't have to," Daniel shot back. "I can see it on your face, that jealous, suspicious look. You're always looking for problems that don't exist." Clara stood very still, her mind racing back 3 years to this same bedroom, this same mirror, but a different Daniel. A Daniel who was nervous before a business dinner and begged her to come with him. Who said just knowing you're there calms me down. Who took her hand and told her, "You're my anchor. When I look at you, I remember what actually matters." That Daniel kissed her forehead and it felt real. This Daniel, the one standing in front of her now, looked at her like she was the problem, like her presence was the inconvenience, like loving him had been her biggest mistake. Clara's voice trembled when she finally spoke, but she forced the question out anyway. "Daniel, is there something I should know about tonight?" The question hung in the air like a blade hovering over both their throats. His answer came too fast, too practiced, like he'd been rehearsing it. "Just don't embarrass me." 4 words, cold, final, delivered like a command. Clara felt them pierce straight through her chest, felt the last fragile hope she'd been carrying shatter into pieces, too small to ever put back together. "Make sure you're dressed properly," Daniel continued, grabbing his jacket with sharp, angry movements. "My family will be watching." He walked past her without looking back, without touching her, without any acknowledgement that she was his wife, that she was carrying his child, that she was a person who deserved even basic kindness. The door shut behind him with a soft click that sounded like the end of something. Clara stood alone in the cold bedroom, staring at the closed drawer that held the evidence of his betrayal, staring at the phone he'd hidden so desperately, staring at her own reflection in the mirror where moments ago she'd seen the truth in his eyes. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out with shaking hands. Same unknown number. 3rd message of the day. "Hope you're dressed nicely," it read. "I'll be near Daniel tonight." Clara's breathing came faster now, shallow and panicked. Her hand went to her stomach, protective and fierce. Whoever was sending these messages knew about the affair, knew about the baby, knew about tonight. The room felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in. Clara sat on the edge of the bed, both hands on her belly now, and whispered to the child growing inside her, "Okay, okay. Tonight I stop protecting him. Tonight I protect us." She pulled out the ultrasound photo from her pocket, the small black and white image she'd been carrying like a talisman, and stared at the tiny form of her son. "Your grandfather would have been so disappointed in the choice I made," she whispered to the photo, "in your father. but he would have loved you so much. And tonight I'm going to make sure you grow up knowing that love doesn't mean making yourself disappear." Clara stood, tucking the photo back into her pocket close to her heart, and walked out of the bedroom with her shoulders straight and her decision made. Tonight, at the gala Daniel had been obsessing over for weeks, at the event he thought would prove he was somebody important, Clara was going to step onto a stage she owned, take a microphone connected to speakers her company installed, and tell to 100 people the truth about who really owned everything they were celebrating. And when she did, Daniel Thompson, his mother Ruth, and his mistress Marissa would learn what it cost to humiliate the wrong woman. The ballroom blazed with golden light, 200 guests in evening wear, champagne glasses catching the glow of crystal chandeliers. Clara stood at the back near the staff entrance, invisible as always, watching the main table where her husband sat with his mother and his mistress. Daniel looked confident in his tailored suit, laughing at something Marissa whispered in his ear, his hand resting possessively on her red-dressed shoulder. Ruth beamed at them both like they were the perfect couple she'd always wanted for her son. The empty space where Clara's chair should have been mocked her silently. She pressed her hand to her stomach, feeling her son move inside her, and took a slow breath. Marco appeared at her elbow, discreet and professional. "We're ready when you are, ma'am. All systems in position." Clara nodded. "It's time." The lights dimmed. Ruth took the stage first, her voice booming with pride about the Thompson family legacy, about 25 years of charitable excellence, about her son's leadership. Then Daniel stood, walking to the microphone with practiced confidence, soaking in applause like oxygen. He thanked everyone, talked about values and integrity and family, words that meant nothing coming from his mouth. Then he did something that made Clara's blood run cold. "Before we continue," Daniel said with a warm smile, "I want to acknowledge someone special, someone who's been by my side through everything. Marissa Cole, would you please stand?" The mistress rose gracefully, glowing in her red dress, and the room applauded politely while Ruth beamed with approval. Daniel had just publicly claimed another woman as his partner, while his pregnant wife watched from the shadows. That was the moment Clara stopped feeling hurt and started feeling power. She walked toward the stage, her steps steady and deliberate. People noticed, whispers rippling through the crowd. Daniel's face went from confident to confused to angry in seconds. "Clara, what are you doing? Sit down." But Clara didn't stop. She climbed the stairs, took the microphone from the stand, and looked out at 200 faces. "Good evening," she said, her voice clear and strong. "My name is Clara Hayes. I'm the founder and CEO of Hayes Consulting Group, and I own the company hosting this event." The screens flanking the stage lit up with documents, ownership papers, business licenses, all bearing her signature. "I own this venue, this hotel, the staff you see tonight," Clara continued as gasps spread through the room. "And I've been funding the Thompson Foundation with anonymous donations of $500,000 a year." More documents appeared, bank transfers, donation records, all traced back to her. "But I also funded something else." The screens changed, showing expense reports, charges for luxury hotels, jewelry, romantic dinners, all from foundation accounts, all shared between Daniel Thompson and Marissa Cole over 14 months. "My money," Clara said, her voice breaking slightly, "funding his affair." The room erupted in shocked whispers. Daniel stood frozen, his face white. Ruth looked like she might faint. But Clara wasn't finished. 14 months ago I lost a baby," she continued. "I was in the hospital hemorrhaging and terrified. And my husband didn't come because he was at a resort with his mistress." She pulled the ultrasound photo from her pocket and held it up. The image projected on the massive screens, a tiny perfect form. "I'm 16 weeks pregnant with his son. And tonight my husband refused me a seat at the table and gave it to her." Women in the audience were crying now. Men shook their heads in disgust. Clara's tears fell, but her voice stayed strong. "Per our prenuptial agreement, adultery forfeits all shared assets. All foundation donations are suspended. Fraud charges are pending. And Daniel, your consulting contracts, your car lease, your office, your country club membership, all funded through my accounts, canceled effective immediately." Daniel tried to speak, but Marco's security team moved forward, blocking him. "And Ms. Cole," Clara said, looking directly at the mistress, "your employer will receive documentation of ethics violations by morning." Marissa ran from the room sobbing. Clara set the microphone down gently and walked off stage. Daniel shouted her name desperately, but she didn't look back. She walked through the silent ballroom, past 200 people recording everything, past Ruth collapsed in her chair, past the empty seat that should have been hers, and out into the night air, finally free. If this story moved you, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from?